now I have the delightful pleasure of introducing Mr. Avi Bar-Zeev. Avi Bar-Zeev is an inventor, entrepreneur, and pioneer of XR and anything and everything metaverse. His work in this space over the past 30 years is widely recognized and deeply appreciated. I haven't met. This is true. I haven't met anyone in the XR world that hasn't heard of Avi. In the 90s, he worked with Disney to create the groundbreaking Aladdin virtual reality ride, which in its full form was one of the longest standing and operational VR attractions in industry history. Remember, this is VR in the 90s. Mr. Bar-Zeev continued on his pioneering streak in the late 90s when he co-founded Keyhole, the company that would then later be acquired by Google to become Google Earth. Around the same time, Mr. Bar-Zeev contributed to the foundational 3D technology used by Linden Labs' famous Second Life virtual world. Many of you have probably heard of Second Life, and it's still alive. One of the very first metaverses of the early 2000s internet. In 2010, Avi co-invented Microsoft Lens, which would later be recognized as a pivotal moment for the state-of-the-art AR technology of the time. In 2015, he also helped define Amazon Echo frames before joining Apple to work on secret projects until 2019. Some of those secret projects may be on the news right now, although I personally don't know, and I'm not sure if Avi can even speak to that. So, oh, you can. Okay, so maybe we can maybe hear some knowledge. And then this is very important. And then Avi is founder and president of the XR Guild, which Ben mentioned earlier during the panel. And it's a nonprofit organization that aims to bring XR professionals across the landscape, whether academia, industry, the whole shebang, to achieve the most positive and ethical outcomes for XR technology for humanity. Please help me welcome Avi Bar-Zeev.
Thank you. So the slides are from a talk that I gave at Stanford in January. I'm going to reuse them, but I'm going to try to use them a little differently. That was an audience of mostly lawyers and policymakers. So, explain it like I'm a lawyer. But I think with some of the science here, I might be able to go a little bit faster. But if I'm going too fast, I'm not a neuroscientist. My wife actually is, but I'm not. I absorb it by osmosis, or being yelled at, as the case may be. And I'll do my best to present it. And if I say something and you're like, does that really work or whatever, let's talk about it. Because the answer is some things we've done experiments in secret inside big companies, and those things may not be published. But if you ask me, perhaps for my opinion of what might work, maybe some of you can do these experiments and publish them out in a way that everybody can see it. All right. So keep an eye on the question of what actually works and what doesn't, and keep me honest on that as well. So when I was young, I was really interested in magic. And I learned a magic trick. I must have been 6 or 7 when I learned this trick. It's the easiest trick in the world, and it almost always works. The question is, why does it work? So don't say it out loud, but pick a number from 1 to 4. Just think about it. So the magic trick is, why does so many people pick 3? You want to tell me how many people pick 3? Just show of hands. OK, way more than 25% pick 3. And the question is why, right? I've seen it as high as 80%, right? If I say it, has a little bit to do with language and people who are native English speakers or not. But let's rewrite this as pick a number from 1 to 4. I said 3 of the 4 numbers. And something in our brain is pattern matching and saying, he didn't say 3, so maybe that's the one. Like as if I told you to pick a random number sequence using the numbers from 1 to 4. You might do something like this, right? This is how humans randomize. It's actually really bad mathematically. This is not random. The entropy is low. And so, or high, depending on how you look at it. So what we tend to do is just to shuffle the deck constantly. So we'll just change the order of the numbers. But in reality, if it's random, you might get 5 3s in a row, right? We don't do that. We don't think that way. Interestingly enough, if you ask ChatGPT this question, to pick a number from 1 to 4, it almost always says 3 as well. To me, oops, I did these on a timer, so let's just put them all out. These are 3 examples of where I tried it. And I really tried to quiz ChatGPT on why. Why did it pick 3? And it lies. It told me it's random or it's not really random. I had to have it write a function, so do it 100 times. When you ask it to really think about it, it tries to do the same thing humans do, which is to come up with that kind of fake random sequence. So the reason it does this is because it's learned from everything we've written. So there's a lot of writing out there, which includes pick a number from 1 to 4, I guess, and showing that the right answer is 3, and so that's the one that's more probable. So ChatGPT just picks it, which is similar in some ways to how we think, but still not very accurate. The reason that that matters is that so many people can be predicted to say 3. It's one of our vulnerabilities. If a magician knows that people are going to pick 3, it's a push. They can ask the question, just like asking you to pick a random card, and they can pretty well guess which card you're going to pick. Right, ace of spades, whatever. They know how to do this. And so these cues are understood well enough that you can manipulate people if you understand the psychology behind it. And that's what this is really all about. But we're going to focus on human vision. So hopefully many of you have had a grounding in this, but I can go kind of fast on this. But it's really important to understand for understanding the manipulations that can happen as a result of human vision and how poor our vision really is, our spatial perception really is. So there's the apocryphal blind man and the elephant. In this case, we don't have to be blind, but it's almost like it. Our eyes are composed of a retina, which has a high-resolution fovea. There's a peripheral area. The key difference, if you don't know this already, is that the fovea sees high resolution. It's the only part of your eye that can really read text with any precision. The peripheral vision is blurry. It is out of focus, very little color information, but it's good at seeing certain things like eyes looking at us. We can tell if someone's staring at us, right, from the corner of the room. It's also really good at horizons. So that was a useful evolutionary trait to be able to see the horizon line in our whole vision. But only the center really sees the detail. So as a result of this, you need to look around. In order to refresh your memory of the world around you, your eyes are constantly darting around. And they're darting around in a very predictable way and in a way that's very telling of what's going on inside your brain. So I would argue that eye tracking is going to be the closest thing to mind reading without being invasive. Okay? And even better than EEGs or some of the other stuff we've talked about. It tells a lot about what you're focusing on in your environment. So that's the one-on-one lesson on human vision. Now, when it comes to spatial computing, it gets a little more interesting. So what we do to make this all work is that we'll put a pair of glasses on your face, and glasses are important. That's the form factor we need to be able to mount these cameras. We put some cameras facing your eyeballs so we can track your eyeballs. That's not the only way to do eye tracking, but right now it's the best. And then we put cameras that look at the world. So while we're looking at you, we're looking at the world, and we can figure out what you're looking at. Are you looking at the apple, the elephant, the child running, or the woman walking away from you? So that's what we can determine by having this at least 4 cameras. And if you look at something like the Apple Vision Pro, there's like 12 cameras. Some of them are looking at your hands, or looking at all sorts of other things. But those 4 are the most important for our purposes. So what are the benefits? Well, the Apple Vision Pro uses it for foveated rendering. That can save power on the device. That's a good use. Avatars, when you animate their eyes, Apple calls these personas. I like that term a lot better. Avatar is a cultural misappropriation that I don't like anymore. But let's call them personas. They need eyes, right? You want their eyes to move the way that your eyes naturally move if they're representing you. So that causes some big complications, because now we need to transmit the data to someone else's machine, because their machine's the one that's going to render our persona, not our machine. We're not sending an image, we're sending joint information. We're sending how you're moving, including the eyes. There's spatial user interfaces, which was the most exciting part of the whole thing for me, and the motivation. I wanted HoloLens back in 2010. I really wanted eye tracking, and it didn't make the cut. But it made it for HoloLens 2, and the Apple Vision Pro uses eye gaze for control in a way that when you get to try it, just believe me for now, it feels like magic. It feels like the computer knows what you're trying to do. And as a result, you just move your finger like this, and it does it, and you feel like, wow, how did that even happen? So I think that's the next great user interface that will finally supplant the mouse. And I gave another talk recently about why that is. If you want to check it out, AWE talk, I talked about a lot of these things, including hype that we've talked about a lot today. I'm not going to go into the hype today, but that talk covers all the stuff I'm not going to cover today, including this. Where it's used as well, we've already seen this in an earlier talk, marketing research. It's done with informed consent. There's nothing too unethical about that. And it's really good for diagnosing a bunch of diseases, or at least conditions. They're not all diseases. But the fact that it's already good at diagnosing these things should be a hint that this is probably health data, right? This is not just data that you want to give away. It should already be covered by the same rules that we're protecting health data from the beginning. So those are the good uses.
Motivation levels, arousal levels.
So we mentioned the marketing. So this is an advertisement of, I think, salad. I'm not totally sure what they're advertising here. But
This is critical because our
but
brains are
the color codes that you're seeing on screen, if you've never seen a heat map, where the red is where everybody looks. Let's say 100 participants, I don't know how many. Where the green is, a few people looked, so the red is kind of the most common focus for everybody. So you get a pretty good idea what people stare at, right? And it doesn't mean all the men are staring at certain things and the women aren't. It's actually much more diverse than you would think in terms of who stares at what. But this has been used for product placement. So supermarkets are all very careful about what they put where they put products on the shelves, try to maximize the sales. These uses are generally good because they're helping the stores. They're not exploiting people. Because people are consenting to be in these studies, they're going to be paid for it. So no real concerns there. Here's a close-up of the eye moving. If you had never seen this before, that's how fast your eye moves when you're scanning around. And it's so-called saccadic movements are the fast ones. There's other kinds of movements too. But these movements are the ones that you use to remember the world, to kind of refresh your memory. I don't have a video here because it won't work on the screen, but if you go to YouTube and search for, let me think of the term, I forgot the search term for this, but I'll find it later. There's videos of a montage of actors, people that are normally considered beautiful people. And there's two of them, and there's a dot in the middle, and the instructions are to stare at the dot, not at the actors. And they cycle through the images, and over time, because you're not looking at them through your fovea, only through peripheral vision, their faces become grotesque, like gargoyles, demons. And the reason is because we're relying on our memory of those areas. We're not really seeing it directly, and so our memory drifts over time. Everybody can do this experiment. If both eyes are working normally, this works for everybody, but only on a small screen. So I'm not going to try to replicate it here. I'll try to remember what the search term is to find that, but I may have given you enough hints that you could find it on your own. So here's a video. It has a little audio that's going to start in a second, but I'll set it up. I scraped this off the internet, so this is from the Royal Institution. And the idea here is that because your eyes are moving so fast, for one thing, when they're moving, you are blind. We can prove that you're blind because you're not going to notice the changes that happen in the world while your eyes are moving. It's also true when you blink. It's a little easier to understand that you can't see while you blink. But your memory is so bad that we can change the world while you blink and you won't notice it. So in this case, the professor is toggling this on and off. So you'll see places where you see it change, places where you don't see it change, depending on how he's configured.
I want you to watch this scene because does anyone notice anything different? What's happening here? Let's see. Does it look like the same scene to you each time it's flicking on? Are you sure? Well, let me show you what happens when I remove the blink. Every frame has a different change, things which you would never believe that you would ever miss. For example, there goes the tree. And then when I put the blank in, you can no longer see the changes. Look. Isn't that remarkable? And then I put it back in again. There they go.
That last one took it out. So the car changing thing is going to come up again in the end. So just keep that in mind. I'm going to show you an even better example of that. So here's a good example of where that particular, I'd say, deficit in human vision can be exploited. So there's a trick called redirected walking. Now think about VR. You put on the headset. You're in a room. Let's say it's 4 meters square. You're going to hit a wall if you try to go in a straight line. So what redirected walking does, it says that you go here, but we're going to rotate the world that you see so that you actually walk in a circle, but you think you're walking in a straight line. So your perception is, I'm going straight forever. This explains the holodeck. How could I keep walking in the holodeck and never hit the wall? Move the holodeck. Like the center of the holodeck has to change so that you're always at the center of it and it moves around you. And in order to do this, I'm not going to play their whole video, they have to do things like throw sparkles in you to make you look somewhere, or wait till you blink, right? Or wait till you have a saccade where you're blind. Then they can rotate the world. And you won't notice it if they do it at that time. You would notice it if you were directly looking at things in the world. So it exploits these tricks for a good reason, but there's plenty of ways to exploit these tricks for bad uses as well. Here's a slide that is intentionally blurred. It's not your vision. I did it on purpose. I'm going to de-blur one section at a time. So here's the takeaways from human perception. If you remember these things, you'll be doing well. And I can't read it from this distance, so my vision is bad enough. So our brains are continually reconstructing our perception of the world. We already covered that. And the red circle is approximately the size of your fovea. If you were sitting relatively close to this, just a word or two at a time. You're not seeing even the whole sentence, which I think has implications for understanding dyslexia. I don't know, I'm not a scientist, but I would look at that. Like that may be one of the causes. We're frequently blind, we talked about that, and our eyes can be easily distracted. Look at the sparkles. Look at that, we just went down there. So everybody looked where the sparkles were. So our gaze can reveal how we feel about things. We talked about emotional sensing earlier. This is just focusing on the eyes, but you can couple this with other sensors as well. But I'll talk about pupil dilation. That alone tells a lot about people. And the conclusion is, actually I'll stay on that one for a second because I probably won't cover it later. We did experiments, I can say, on pupil dilation that are incredibly important. Normally your pupils dilate because of light levels. It's there as a sort of f-stop, like on a camera, to balance the light levels. So, but if you control for the light levels, there's a whole other signal that comes out of pupils, which is your level of interest or excitement at the thing you're looking at. And what's super interesting is that pupil dilation is fast, and it happens even before you think about it. So if we show you something that you're interested in, your pupils go, whoa, I want to see that. I want to take in all those photons. And if we show you something that is boring you, that you're not interested in, opposite. And so you can use this as a predictive signal to, we weren't successful in making it a click. Like right now, you click, you have your fingers go like this. That's your click, right? Or you dwell with your eyes. If you stare at something, it's just like clicking it. What we wanted was a mouse click with your eyes, and we thought maybe pupil dilation would do it. Turns out it's useful for a whole other set of things, not so much a click. And partly because it's an involuntary reflex, which I'll get to. All right, so continuing, we should never allow this biometric information to leave our devices. If it's kept at all, it should be kept encrypted and secure on the device so nobody can get it. That's what Apple's doing, if they're keeping it. Mostly they're getting rid of it because it forms a robust model of our personality. One thing I'll say I'll say it in a second. Well, wait. It can be used to manipulate. So here's the dark side. Let's talk about the security of biometric signatures on the next slide. We talked a little bit about emotion mapping. So if they know who you are, they can start building up a profile of you. The sad thing here is that even if they don't know who you are, they can build up a profile of you. It turns out that even if a system only collects your hand motions and your head motions, like a traditional VR HMD, there's a Berkeley study that just came out that shows this. Literally just a few minutes of capturing that data, you can be de-anonymized with just a few seconds of data. So if they've captured 5 minutes of data, they only need a few seconds and they can say, we know who you are. So I think this throws the idea of anonymizing people for studies out the window. If the data in the study is revealing of who you are, the anonymity is false. It's not there. So we need better methods to be able to protect people's data in their studies. One of them, again, is to keep the data on the device. So medical grade invasions of privacy, we've seen what happens when insurance companies get a hold of diagnostic information and want to raise your rates for people who are going to get sick, right? So we don't want them having that data. There's a real good reason for that. Non-consensual experimentation, you have to ask, when does that ever happen? Non-consensual experimentation, oh yeah, remember that? It has happened, and apology is not enough for that. This is where an ethics board would say no way. If they ever ran it by an ethics board, you would be able to catch that early. A lot of people don't know, and maybe at the end I'll talk about the Guild. The Guild's purpose is to make sure that they do know, that they understand the ethical implications well enough to ask the right questions. All right, so back to the present and identity. These are a whole list of things that are unique about you, more unique than your fingerprints. So if, for example, the Vision Pro is using your eyeball as a way to identify you, that information has to be encrypted only on the device. It can never be shared over the network because that introduces the opportunity for someone to intercept it. You can change your password, but you can't change your eyes. And don't even think about just putting contacts in. That's not going to be good enough. An iris ID system has to be able to defeat people who are putting in fake contact lenses in order to trick the system. So don't assume that you're just going to be able to put in fake contacts with colors on them. So these are all unique, depending on what you're looking at, and especially in multispectral. So again, we can be anonymized. I think the way Vision Pro is doing it is secure and is safe for everybody, but other companies will follow suit. Microsoft fortunately had this feature and they did protect it. So I think Microsoft also deserves kudos. I'm not so sure about other companies if they follow. That's one of the dangers of trying to pioneer this stuff is some people will do it right, some people will do it wrong. I feel like that's our responsibility if you go first to set the standard for how to do it right. So what do you learn from all this stuff? Well, you can learn from your eye rotations in your head position what you looked at, the pupil analysis I mentioned. You can see how excited somebody is about the thing they're looking at. You have a whole bunch of ML classifications you can do based on all this data. Nobody knows how the machine learning model is quite working, but it is pretty good at pattern matching and figuring out what state you were in if it has enough data. And if you look at around the eyes, the eyebrows and the eyelids are also usually very expressive. If I were trying to build a reliable system, I would focus on the involuntary responses, not the voluntary ones, because a good actor could trick the system for better or worse. But like pupil dilation is involuntary. I've never seen anybody be able to control their dilation. So if we're looking for example, replicants in Blade Runner, pupil dilation is the way to go with your Voight-Comp test. Okay, so the advertisers are fond of this saying. This shows up in every advertising conference ever. Half the money I spend is wasted. Well, now we're going to know which half is wasted. So we're going to be able to save a lot of money in advertising because we're going to be able to test these ideas. Now, the way it's happened traditionally is that there's this loop. We do studies on people, we learn from people, and that data gets applied to future ads. So we have a general idea of how the ads are working. But what's happening now is we're closing the loop and we're making it so fast that these experiments can be done in real time. So we can have a hypothesis on your device that says, we think you're going to be upset by a picture of a dead mouse, for example. Let's test it. Let's see what happens. And a moment later, we have the results. Yes, your emotions changed. And that closing of the loop is what makes this so dangerous. We're effectively making Skinner boxes out of people, and probably without their knowledge or consent, because nobody really understands this. And we're doing it in such a way that everybody individually can be tracked and mapped, which is way more dangerous than the collective that we've been dealing with the last 50 years. Here's our perception, I think, of advertising. We're Superman. The advertising just bounces off of us. We barely notice it. It's in the background of YouTube and Facebook and everything, right? We just scroll by. We don't pay attention to it. It has no effect on us. But is that really true? So here's the near future, and this already exists, but it's going to happen more and more. So imagine this is you in the middle in your family. You got your mom, your dad, boyfriend, sister, girlfriend, whoever, whatever structure you want, doesn't matter. And this is a normal cartoon family life. But what's going to happen fairly soon is knowing, for example, what kinds of diseases you might be predisposed to through personal information combined with advertising. The helpful AI TV doctor is going to pitch just the right kind of medicine to you. Hey, that's targeted advertising. Is it a good thing or bad thing? I don't know. It depends. Depends on whether it's manipulative, because I don't know that I want to see a lot of ads for medicines, but maybe there's one that'll help me and I need it, so who knows. But it doesn't stop there. That's just the tip of the iceberg. What's going to happen very soon is that if I'm holding a bottle, that you may see, if you're my friend, you might see a picture of me holding a different bottle. Maybe it's a bottle of Coke. It's essentially product placement in our personal lives. The generative AI will be able to say, show me that picture, but change the following, based on who bids the highest. It's all auctioned off, our attention. So effectively, we're turning our friends and families into billboards to advertise to us. And if we object to that, no problem, because now we can make avatars, personas, that look like them, but we have plausible deniability, because they just look like them enough for us to trust them, but it's not really them. And so we will, do we give consent for that? I don't think so, but there's a whole bunch of things we didn't give consent for that still happen. And it gets even worse. We remember Cambridge Analytica. Let me just do a sequence first. So you have your family, your attention, your behaviors, your pretty much everything about you down to your emotions will be mapped and used to make the targeting more effective to you. Because why would anybody go through the trouble of doing this stuff if they weren't trying to make it more effective? The end result, that advertisers will pay more money for ads that work, the ads that connect, and they can prove they work because you went out and bought the product. That's what closes the loop, and that's where the business cycle takes us. So it doesn't stop there. If we remember Cambridge Analytica and add politics to this as well, Cambridge Analytica was able to convince a small African country, all the people under 21, they convinced them that they had no say in the government, and people didn't turn out to vote, and the vote went a certain way. This was a direct result of them having targeted information as to who can they give this message to. And in the case of the US election, they could figure out who was going to be anti-Hillary, who was going to be pro-Trump, and on which issues. So they figure out if abortion is a hot issue, they're going to send you the abortion ads. Whether they're true or not is a whole other question. And by the way, I'm not going to propose censoring the advertising. I think that is part of our culture. The First Amendment is to have that level of freedom. But I will propose a solution at the end of this talk that doesn't violate the First Amendment. So here's the car that I promised. I found this nice advertisement. This is some generative AI that's continually morphing the car. Imagine we're in a virtual world. This could be AR on the street as well. And somebody wants to figure out what kind of car you really want to buy, right? What is it? Is it a Pinto? Is it something else? So imagine that the cars in the world are continually changing, but not that you could notice it, because it's going to wait for you to blink or look away. And it's only going to change the thing you're not looking at. So you will not notice that this is happening. If you stare at it, it's not going to happen, right? They'll change something else. So we'll be able to trick you until we finally find out what kind of car you want. Let's say it's this one. And now we put up the flashies and distract you. Like if you weren't even paying attention before, now we're going to totally get your attention to look away from the car. So we have plenty of ways to do that. Now we're going to do the same technique to figure out how you feel about each of your friends. So we're going to cycle through your friends, figure out your emotional reaction to each one of those to decide who's going to be most useful for helping to sell this car to you. Happen to randomly stop on a car that I don't like, but whatever. So now we've used your friends, and we'll figure out who you're attracted to. Because that's pretty easy to figure out from this eye data, right? Think about people you're attracted to, stealing glances, right? When hopefully you're thinking they don't look at me, but I look at them. Like all sorts of things happen that are fairly easy to decode when you have the data. So now we're going to take your best friend and the person that you're most attracted to, and we're going to make an ad. And that ad is we put them in the car that we know you want. They're having a great time together. We've pushed all your buttons at once, right? How could you resist this ad? You're like the car you want, the person you like, your best friend. Like, ugh. So that's what we're going to be stuck with, and unless we stop it. I think this is just the best example I could think of. There's people way more creative than me who will come up with way worse uses of this technology. So now Meta, the company formerly known as Facebook, did do some good things in this. I like to give them praise when they deserve it, which is not that often. But they did an opt-in. So they looked at the standards and said, you have to turn eye tracking on. It's off by default on the Quest Pro. You have to turn it on. So that's listening to some degree to privacy concerns, because it isn't just asking. So they assume they have your consent. The problem is, what kind of consent is it? Because I needed to turn that on because I wanted my avatar's eyes to work, right? I needed to turn it on because the system performance would go up if I did it. So did I really get a choice in the matter? I kind of needed to turn it on. And that's the same problem we see with cookies. We get so tired of the little pop-ups of the cookies that we just click them and say, okay, already, stop asking me about cookies. And I think this goes to the concept of informed consent is no longer informed consent. You have to actually explain to people. They have to understand the risks and the costs and the fact that they can say no, or else it's not informed. So what I would propose instead is we have a use case-based permission system. So we say, is it okay to use my eye data for animating my avatar's eyes? Yes, that's okay. Improving 3D performance? Yes, but not for the other things. If they give people this level of granular control, then we can actually say we're getting a little closer to informed consent, right? That's a simple solution that Facebook could adopt. Apple has been very careful about this. They say that your eye gaze data is not saved. It's only used for the system right now. Applications only get it when you use your eyes to essentially click on something. So they can't track you at all. All they know is you essentially push the button. Unless you do a full screen application, in which case it can get it because of the need for avatar eyes and things like that. So they've done better. It's not perfect yet, but they've definitely improved it. And maybe by the time it ships, they will have done something like this. All right, here's a video. Watch this about manipulation.
It's from Daddy.
I love you, baby girl.
Steak. That's what a man eats.
Made from stuff guys need.
Like a man. There's no one that can relate to that better than I do, because
love you, baby girl.
I've lived in that world. Steak is for man. They showed us commercials, burgers, George Foreman with the grill, and the big sandwiches and all that stuff.
Eat like a man and be full like a man.
This is great marketing for the meat industry.
Serious man.
Selling that idea that real men eat meat.
You look like more
Sugar
of a man with a quarter pounder in your hand.
But you got to understand, that's marketing. That's not based on reality.
When Juul first launched, their marketing looked a lot different. When you put those ads alongside old cigarette ads, the similarities are pretty striking. Both marketed relaxation, sharing, travel, freedom, and sex appeal. It's now illegal for cigarette brands to use these kinds of suggestive advertising themes. But for e-cigarette manufacturers who had products on the market before 2016, those strategies are still unregulated. That's why a brand like Candy Pens can be promoted in DJ Khaled music videos, just like tobacco corporations used to pay stars to smoke their cigarettes on.
Okay, so I want to just give you a demonstration. I know it's a lot going on there, but what is an ad for Duracell that's using the emotions of a child reuniting with their father who's been overseas? What is the real men eat meat, and what is smoke Juul because you'll be cool? What do those all have in common is they're all examples of existing manipulation that already works, right? It's powerful stuff. And these things are not selling you on the benefits of their product. They're selling you on the emotional manipulation to the extent that any of us are susceptible to it. I think the conclusion that I would like to draw from this is that we protect children today from manipulative advertising because the children can't consent. The conclusion I draw is that even as adults, we are like children. When it comes to this technology, we don't have defenses and we don't have a way to say no. It's really effective. And so I think we need to regulate it for sure. I think we need to really address this. And the proposal that I would make, and I'm not a lawyer, not a policymaker, is very simple. We had this thing called the Glass-Steagall Act, which separated Wall Street from the banks. The banks were there to save our money. Wall Street was there to invest, keep them separate. We repealed it, and we had a meltdown. Like, it was a really good idea coming out of the Great Depression, and we got rid of it. I think we need something similar here that says advertising's okay. We don't want to censor ads, well, most of them. Some of them are still over the line, like false medical advertising is already not legal. But let's separate the personal data businesses from the advertising business. So personal data should only ever be used to benefit the person wearing the device. They're the person giving their data. They should get the benefits. I don't even like the idea of paying them. Like, that's sort of short-circuiting the whole thing. Let's just make sure that the devices work in their interest and for their benefit, and not for some unseen third party who is essentially auctioning off your time and attention for their benefit. If we stick to that rule, that principle, I think it might be hard for companies who are in the ad tech world right now, but I think they will come up with other business models. It came up before around Google. Google's in the same boat as Facebook. They're just a little less obnoxious about it. But I think that they will have new business models. It turns out Second Life, for all the things you can criticize about it, it's still around today. Second Life made more money per user than Facebook does, with no advertising and no subscriptions. You don't pay anything to get into Second Life. There's no ads except what people put in their home spaces. And they make more money. They make it on the transactions. They make it on the things that people create and share and sell. So if you're looking for a future that's a viable future that doesn't need advertising, it's there for 20 years. We could just look at it and copy it. So I think that's a really important thing to look at. And that is my talk. And I guess, I don't know if I have time left. Did I run over?
We'll do one question.
Okay. Oh, I think you were first.
You mentioned personal device data. There's another viewpoint where we need as much data as we can anonymized. Maybe it could be de-anonymized so that we could get good diversity data sets. Mm-hmm. How do you balance the two, right? Because everything is personal. We never get a large enough data set for good, diverse studies and representative product.
My sense is that when companies have put in the effort to try to have training data that's diverse, it's an active effort. It isn't just based on who shows up. They have to go recruit, and they've done that poorly. There was a case where one company had recruited homeless people, people of color, and that may have been a skewed sample, right? Thinking that represents everybody. And so you got to be really intelligent and careful and thoughtful about how you do it and make sure the data is diverse, and then check the models at the end of the day to make sure that they are giving results that are not biased, right? That needs to become a normal process that we do. But I think it's orthogonal to the question of consent. I think that we need to figure out how to give people back control of their mental autonomy. If they want to be part of the study or not, that's up to them. And if they want to give their training data or not, I think we have to figure out a way to really respect that. So I'd keep those separate for now. But we have to do much better on the training data for sure. It's been one of the biggest issues in AI so far, in addition to not paying people for their creative content and reselling it, which is my other talk is a little more about that. All right. Okay, thank you.